Let's talk about the 4 conversation mistakes that causes your interactions to fizzle out here walking the dog, guys. I want to make this quick video for you to talk about these different sticking points that I see within the clients that I coach. And these are also mistakes that I've made at different points in my journey. So I want to talk about each one of these, and you could probably identify with at least one of them. And I'm going to show you how to get to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. So point number 1 is going to be the reason your interactions are fizzling out. And this is typically at the lowest level, which is you're ejecting out of the interaction. You go in, you approach, you say hi, maybe you display intent, and you're really nervous. You're not comfortable staying in a longer interaction. And so the biggest mistake I see men make is they leave the interaction. And honestly, a decent amount of the time, guys, like the girl wasn't even ready to end the interaction. Honestly, like you could have just stayed in and extended it a little bit further, but you got so nervous, you panicked. There was some couple seconds of silence maybe, and you just didn't know where to take it. So instead of sitting in the fire, Theo's trying to attack these other dogs. So instead of staying in the fire, sitting in that uncomfortable situation and trying to come up with the next thing to talk about, which is, by the way, that's how you're gonna actually overcome that sticking point, is learning how to stay in that and coming up with that next phrase, that next question, that next input about the topic. That's how you're going to grow from that. So if you're somebody and you know you're only having 15 to 30 seconds of conversation, maybe even a minute, if that's you guys, like my advice is just recognize, hey, these interactions are ending because of me, because I'm leaving. I'm prematurely ejecting out of it. We used to call it premature ejaculation, right? You prematurely left the conversation. So just practice staying in and saying one more question, one more observation, which brings me into point number 2, which is going to be at some point, now that you're staying in these interactions, you're going to run out of things to say, right? Sticking point number 1, you're afraid of running out of things to say, so you eject. Now that you're not leaving and you're staying there, you're going to have these like awkward silences where you actually run out of shit to say. So how do we overcome that? What do we need to do, right? Well, it comes down to a couple different things. The easiest thing that I recommend to my clients is having at least one flavorful conversation. Just having some sort of story that you can bring up in conversation, because conversation is very predictable, guys. Like I help a lot of my clients come up with these stories, and I even break down the recordings of their interactions so they can hear what they're saying and where they're going wrong, okay? But my advice for you, if you're not at a place yet where you can work with me directly, I mean, if you are, click the link down below, but if you're not, I would say think about, what do you do for work? What do you do for fun? Where do you live, or where are you from? You need to have a flavorful story that encompasses those things that you can just throw out in the interaction at will. All right, and if you can't talk about those things about yourself in an interesting way, to put it simply, you're not an interesting conversationalist then. Okay, so that would be my first piece of advice, is just being able to talk about what you do. Like in almost every interaction I get into out here, people are like, oh, are you from here? Or do you live here? Right? And I'll always say something along the lines of, well, I actually moved here 2 years ago. Like I lived in New Jersey almost my entire life. It wasn't until in the last couple of years that my business really took off. And now I'm in a place where I don't need to be in New Jersey. And due to the company expanding and everything I had going on, I was like, you know what? I'm going to relocate the team to Miami. So 2 years ago, I moved out here. And honestly, I liked it so much, I re-signed on my apartment building. And I think I'm going to stay here another year. How long have you been here? Right? So that will typically lead to more questions as well. People will usually ask, oh, what do you do for work? Right? So having an interesting story about yourself is a great way to extend the conversation and feel a little bit more confident, like you do have something to say. The one other point to this is that aside from just having a unique story, I would also recommend you get good at personal input, pointing out observations that you notice about the person, and then also being able to switch topic, right? Those are important tools that I really teach in my conversation module. When I talk to a client about extending an interaction, those are the tools. Personal input, you talking about your experience on a topic. So we're talking about cars. the person's talking about, oh, they used to have a Honda Civic or they have a Toyota Corolla. I would say, you know what's funny is my first car was actually a Jeep. It was my mom's Jeep. It was a 2006 Jeep Grand Cherokee. And I crashed that thing. And then pretty much from there on out, my whole life was Honda Civics and Honda Accords. Like I was Honda gang for over a decade. Okay, so you see what I did there? I was elaborating on the topic. I used personal input on the topic. Okay, so you gotta get good at that. You gotta be able to make observations. Like if you see something on a person and you like that thing, you could point it out like, hey, excuse me, I really like your towel and bathing suit. Yeah, have a great day, okay? Okay, so just making observations, giving out a unique compliment, pointing those things out in the middle of the interaction can also spice things up a little bit as well. Once you get over, and lastly on this topic of not running out of things to say, guys, like it's a muscle, it's a skill set, it takes practice, it takes repetition. You're not just gonna go one day from being really awkward to being an amazing conversationalist. This is a muscle that you will need to build up with practice, with repetition, to get that muscle stronger more and more and more and more and more. Once you then get to a point where you're no longer running out of things to say, the next biggest sticking point that I see as to why the conversation ends with most men is because they're boring. They talk in a way that's unenthusiastic. There's no expression, there's no animation. So if you guys pay attention to the way that I talk in a lot of these videos, oftentimes I'm pretty animated. My face, my voice, my hand movements, my energy, my vibe, the rhythm that I talk at, all of these things have a lot of movement to them, and that actually makes me a more engaging communicator, right? So my advice would be, a lot of you guys, you're not very animated. You're kind of monotone. You talk a little low. You have no enthusiasm. If I did the whole video like this, you would no longer be watching this video, right? And that's how a lot of you guys talk. And so my advice would be, if you want to become a more engaging communicator, that takes practice. Like I was at a very low level with that. I sucked with hand movements. My eye contact was awkward as shit. I was not confident with my smile, my speed, my tonality. It was all whack. It was all whack, guys. The first time I ever heard myself on a recording, I thought the recording was on 2x speed. I was looking for the playback settings, and my boy was like, nah, dude, like that's how you sound in the interaction. I was shocked. And so the only way that I got better with it, though, is I heard myself on recording over and over again. So my advice would be, guys, like on a daily basis, practice your communication. Pull out your phone, record yourself on camera, play that back, assess what parts of your communication need improving. Compare it maybe to mine or another powerful communicator that you like. If there's somebody that you like their delivery or the way they sound or the way they talk and move, compare your video of you talking to them and point out which elements need improvement. Communication is a muscle, it's a skill set, it's something you need to work on consistently if you want to change those things. Now, once you can get to a place where you can have a couple minutes of conversation and you can communicate in an enthusiastic way, that will bring us into the fourth sticking point as to why your conversations fizzle out. And that is simply because you're too friendly, it's not flirty enough, there isn't enough of that man to woman vibe in the interaction, it's lacking that emotional intensity. And as a result, you're having friendly conversation, but that will almost always fizzle out after a couple of minutes. Or you just get friend zoned. It could keep going, but you'll get friend zoned. So it either fizzles out or you get a number, but she's not gonna go on a date with you, right? And so the way that you overcome that sticking point, because I was that guy too, I got to a point where I could have conversation. I was even a little playful, but I wasn't getting laid. I wasn't getting dates. I wasn't getting girls aroused. I wasn't creating attraction, like high levels of attraction. And it's because I wasn't confident flirting. I wasn't confident displaying intent. I wasn't good with those skill sets. And those are also unique skill sets that you can also build up those elements. So my advice would be, if you're that guy, like if you're the charismatic guy, or you can have a conversation, but you can't make it flirty. You don't have some level of sexual intensity in the interaction. You don't feel confident with those things, right? My advice would be, start practicing doing direct approaches. Like actually get comfortable displaying intent to women. That's a skill set in itself that you need to get desensitized to. So direct approaches, or also just sprinkling it in the middle of the interaction too. So you could do it right off the approach. You could also do it in the middle of the interaction. You can also practice it from online dating as well. Like if you go on dates from online dating, you're gonna need to get comfortable flirting and escalating and creating more of a man to woman vibe. So it can be done in a variety of different ways. But the conclusion is, if you're not injecting it, if you're not practicing the delivery, if you're not using the right phrases, it's not just gonna magically become flirty. Okay, so that's something you're going to need to practice over time. All right, those are the 4 different ways. You need to assess which one is you, and based on that, you're gonna take a more proactive approach to build up the skill set, to break through to the next level. And also, if you guys have been watching the content, but you're still stuck at one of these levels, I mean, dude, how many more videos are you gonna watch? Like, if you're ready to make an actual transformation, you can work with me directly. If you're ejecting out of the interactions, you need more infield coaching and accountability. On my one-on-one program, we give you live infield coaching calls. You will be out in the field and we will push you through those steps. If you're somebody who's running out of things to say, I will sit down with you and help craft your flavorful answers. Right? I will tell you word for word what fits for your story and how to present that in an attractive way. And then we will record your interactions and I will break that down with you line by line. If you're somebody who's too boring or too monotone, I'll help you with your communication. If you're somebody who's too friendly in the interaction, I will break down your interactions. We will coach you out in the field. I will show you how to make it more flirty so you could be confident with your flirting skills. When you get good at these skill sets, that's how you can create attraction. That's how you can approach whoever you want, spark a conversation, make it flirty, get a phone number, set up a date, and actually have the dating life you always wanted. All right, stop watching the content, man. If this is hitting, and you know it's kind of hitting if you're still watching, click the link down below. Book out a free consultation call. You can sit down with my team. We'll talk about exactly where you're at. We'll lay out the details to customize a program specifically for you and how you could actually have results in this area of your life. All right, links down below. Stop messing around on YouTube. Click that link right now. That's all for this one, guys. Peace out.